Welcome back to Inside City Hall. When Governor Cuomo received the support of the Working Families Party, it was partly due to his promise to reunite the bitterly divided state Senate Democrats. However, in the days since that agreement, the governor appears to be interpreting his promise differently than some activists. He's been telling reporters, in fact, that any efforts would happen next year after this November's elections. So what does all of this mean for the balance of power in Albany, and what does it say about the governor's agreement with the Working Families Party? Joining me now to talk it over, and we've got much more as well, we've got the New York One wise guys, former U.S. Senator Al D'Amato, guest wise guy, former Congressman Anthony Wiener, guest wise gal, former Congresswoman and City Controller and Brooklyn District Attorney Elizabeth Holtzman. Good to see everybody. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And let's start with this big sort of agreement with the Working Families Party. The very next day, the governor started to sort of amend the deal a little bit or backtrack a little bit. There are elements of the Working Families Party that are saying, hey, our leverage is gone. We can't hold him to this. There are others, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, the editorial board, slammed the governor for making the deal in the first place, saying that he's basically given up on upstate and is now the captive of a small downstate third party. Who won and who lost here?
Well, I wrote an op-ed in the Daily News that basically argued that third parties should not endorse the candidates of the top two parties because it starts to blur the truth in advertising that voters get. Voters apparently, if they want a third party choice, they should have one. But what happened here is a shotgun marriage that Cuomo was reluctant to do to begin with. It showed it almost chafing immediately after he walked out the door. But let's remember something on the substance of it. It's kind of late in the process. Like, there are already primaries that are going on there. People jumped into races. So, I mean, Joe Crowley in Queens is supporting someone against Tony Avellas. He's supposed to now withdraw his support. What about unions that have endorsed third parties? So making the fight go away just because the Working Families Party said it should is unrealistic. But if Cuomo, it would be nice if he makes this deal and then keeps his mouth shut for 48 hours, 72 hours. It's almost as if he was thumbing his nose at the deal as soon as he made it. So obviously Working Families Party members, a lot of the unions that dragged along their members into this deal are not very happy, and I wouldn't be either. It's a very uncomfortable situation they're being put in by the government.
And it's a tough kind of a deal because you lose your leverage the minute after the deal, the minute after you shake hands, in effect, right?
You know, they put the governor in a very difficult position by threatening to withhold their endorsement and really saying that basically it will siphon votes away from you. You know, you don't do things like that. And if you do them like that, if you use the blackjack, when people are free of the blackjack, they're going to act in what they perceive their own best interest. You have a gun pointed at me, I'll do whatever you want, particularly if you have real bullets in it, and you may shoot it. So they got what they deserve. And I probably in the governor's position would have done the same thing because I figure it's X thousands of votes. Politicians do that. Very few who have the courage. I think on the national scene, very few have the courage to say, go take a jump in a lake. I think of all the presidents, I haven't seen many do it. Harry Truman did it, one of the great presidents of our time. He told the Dixiecrats, go ahead, walk out, because they didn't like him because of Fair Employment Practices Act. That's you don't have that in politics. So if you're going to blackmail me, and you expect that I'm going to adhere to your every wish, I probably won't.
So maybe Working Families had some other options. I was kind of wondering why they didn't put forward a lieutenant governor candidate, you know, the week before.
They didn't really look. There's no one who could have been a better choice than Kathy Hochul. And by the way, anyone who says that the governor's not caring about upstate, that he's captive of downstate, all they have to do is look at her selection as lieutenant governor. I mean, she was a wonderful congresswoman, a very good county official, and I think she'll be a great lieutenant governor. So I think it's definitely showing that the governor cares about that.
If we ever hear from her, I might agree with you.
No. Kathy Hochul is no retiring shy violet. She's going to be out there doing a great job for the people of the state. I'm convinced of that. I got to know her.
I'm curious.
But let me just finish about the other point. I mean, it is a little naive. You don't have a contract signed in blood. You don't have any kind of contract. What is your remedy if it's not fulfilled? I mean, these are grown-up people. They should understand that they're forcing somebody against their will to do something. chances are they're going to squiggle and squirm and get out of it. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for that. And I agree with Anthony about the fact that these parties of these third parties, they should be staying out of the business of other parties. They want to be there independent, do it.
But let's remember something. Obviously, the governor saw some value in getting this endorsement, right? He worked very hard to get it, made a whole high-profile fight over getting it. Why? If he doesn't believe in their values, he's going to win the election. Are you so afraid of having a fourth person on stage criticize you from the left? You want to be the governor of our state and you can't withstand someone criticizing you any more than the Conservative Party? If you're a Republican candidate who maybe believes in pro-choice, you can't withstand having a conservative candidate on stage with you? Why do we just, is the difference between 72% of the vote and 65% of the vote? I think that we've lost track of the ideas. From the eyes of the voters, they still look at parties as having some meaning. And if you signed up as a working party's candidate, a voter, I think you expect there to be some value behind that. If you're contorting yourself 15 ways to Thursday to be able to endorse the governor, and the governor is signing fake agreements in order to get your endorsement, what does this process mean? Aren't parties supposed to be for the voters? For them, they must be bewildered with this process.
Let me ask you this. How many people do we really think belong to the working parties in any event? Isn't it really a collection of power brokers on the left, basically unions, who've come together and put together this make-believe party that espouses those principles, etc., that are good for their unions. I hope their membership, but their union bosses. And what do you expect?
How is it different than the Right to Life Party or the Green Party?
I'll tell you what. The Green Party has a philosophy, and it's. And the philosophy is green, environment, etc. The Right to Life Party, they have a philosophy. It is, we're opposed to abortion, etc. So when you take this collection of leaders who say for their own empowerment, and they've used it effectively, they've been very effective, but it's not the people.
Let's agree, it works best when there's either one person, like a Ray Harding or a Mike Long, or a group that knows what it wants.
Well,
like
I don't know if that's
right?
necessarily true. The progressive movement in this country was a union movement that turned into a political movement. And if you think that unions don't believe in fair wage, don't believe in campaign finance reform, don't believe in making sure that individual rights of choice are protected, I think just you might not agree with them, but to say these big bad union guys are working for their own interests.
I didn't call them big bad.
I did say big bad.
Power brokers. Let's move on. I mean, one theory about why Governor Cuomo so badly wanted the Working Families Party was to present to a national audience the fact that he had brought together a unified Democratic Party in New York, which raises the question of 2016.
Well put. And you're absolutely right.
Well, how about this? I'll make a deal with you. I will eat this table if the following two things happen. Cuomo runs for president in 2016, and this comes up as an issue in Iowa, whether or not some third party endorsed him. It ain't going to happen. We get obsessed with these things. They're meaningless. But here in New York, where we're all going to stay, it does matter that these parties work.
I'm not sure I agree with that, Anthony, because I think if you look at what Governor Christie did in New Jersey, he wanted Democrats to support him. He wanted to show that he had a vast appeal among all Democrats. So I don't fault the governor for trying to get the Working Families Party. I just think that their agreement was, I thought that they never were not going to endorse him because that was going to be their interest. And I thought that for them really to think that they were going to get very liberal results from him was naive.
This week, of course, begins the Hillary Clinton book tour, which is the beginning of what I think we all know is going to be a pretty long process. So, not to put anybody on the spot whose wife happens to be very close to the Clintons, but are we at the start of a campaign?
As ironic as this may sound, I probably know less about the Hillary Clinton campaign than anyone else at this table. We have firewalls on top of our firewalls in the Wiener household. But no. This looks to me, we saw the first book signing today, where all of the commentary from reporters is how many books she signed. She's selling a book. I mean, she wrote a book. She wants it to be successful. She has things that she wants to talk about, things she wants to articulate. You know, we can massage the crystal ball as much as we want, that at the end of the day, we're more eager for a campaign to start than probably the American people or the candidates right now. And so sometimes a cigar is just a cigar and a book is just a book. I think that's what this is from Hillary Clinton.
Okay, if you say so. I think, though, until we read the book, we can't be sure. I don't know if you've seen any of the galleys or anything like that, but I mean, to read through it and sort of see where it's going. Last but not least, we've been talking tonight about Charles Rangel. We've got a big debate on New York One on this program tomorrow night. What do you think, whoever your candidate of choice is, what do they need to do tomorrow? There's been a lot of talk about how nasty it's gotten. I think nobody at this table is a stranger to nasty races, if I remember my history correctly. It's kind of inevitable, isn't it?
Well, I think the most important thing that both candidates have to do is to get their own vote out. And this is not a this is a strange year in the sense that we have two sets of primaries and people aren't accustomed to voting in congressional primaries in June. So this is a change. I think that Charlie has a long record. I served with him in Congress. We were on the impeachment committee together, so we go way back. And I like him and I consider him a friend. But he's got to get his vote out. He's well known. There are a lot of people who are very loyal to him. Same with Senator Espaillat. So I think that this is really an effort of getting your troops out.
When race and ethnicity get thrown into that mix, Senator, is it harder to get your vote out? I mean, it certainly distracts the media.
Well, it
sure.
distracts the media, but listen, ethnic pride is something that exists, and people will play to it. I play to it. Candidates play to it. If they say they don't, they're full of baloney, and particularly in this situation, when you had a close race 2 years ago, so it's a jump ball, and who gets their people to the polls? And you know, if they get anywhere near 20%, that would be incredible, and I think they might get it up there because it's hotly contested. But primaries, we've got one in a couple in Long Island. They probably won't get. There's a fierce congressional thing. Zeldin and Demo still get about 10% of the vote. What's her name running for Congress? The district attorney in Nassau County, Kathleen Rice. She's lucky. They're lucky if they get 10%. So you really have to drag them out.
Okay, that is going to be the last word. Good to see you, Congressman. Good to see you, Senator. Good to see you, Congresswoman. We are going to take a short break now, and straight ahead, President Obama and Mayor de Blasio's workouts have been all over the headlines. So have their attempts to get people in shape. I'm going to talk with a top fitness expert to take a closer look at their plans. Stay with us.